Hi, so I think it was a couple of years ago I made a YouTube video of a Prophet 6 cover of what I think would be the main musical theme of Blade Runner 2049. Incredible movie, right? And so for that cover I made the patch myself from scratch on the Prophet 6, and a bunch of people commented asking if I could share that patch, and I just said, dude, I have no idea how to share a Prophet 6 patch online. I don't know how to distribute it. I just don't really have a way of doing that. And so some people commented saying, could you just make a video tutorial of how to make the patch? And so I'm finally making that video. Here it is, guys. So just so you know, the theme that I'm talking about is from the movie. It's in the movie and it's also in the soundtrack. And if you look up the soundtrack on Spotify, it's track 8, which is titled Mesa, and it's also in track 23, which is titled Blade Runner. And so if you want to listen to the exact theme as it is originally, that's where you find it. It sounds incredible in the soundtrack. It is just so beautiful. It's one of the best synth sounds. It makes me think of a French horn or something. It's just so smooth and pure, but just the right amount of intensity and dirt. And if you listen to the soundtrack, it's pretty clear that it's at least 2 layers going on. It's not just the one sound. So there's more than one synth going on at the same time there. And so I've just done my best to approximate that with the Prophet 6 in just one patch, and to just get the character and the vibe, but also to make it into a patch that is usable, where you can play the melody and the harmony on the same patch at the same time. And so forgive me if this is not a very good tutorial. I've never done a video tutorial of anything before. So hopefully this works, and hopefully you guys are able to get the sound. So without further ado, here goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the patch, which sounds like this, and then I'm going to initialize the patch so that it sounds like this. But because they're still in my saved patch, anytime all my parameters are saved, so anytime I get to the right value on any knob, the dot will come up to show me that I've got the saved value for that parameter. And so then we'll start from an initialized patch, start from scratch, and build all the way up to the patch that I have saved. So the first thing to get this out of the way is key mode. It's saved on lowest, which just annoys the hell out of me. I've got it on last retrigger. The manual says that this parameter only affects unison mode, but I just find that it somehow impacts polyphonic mode. Another topic for another day. What are you going to do? You can just put it on there or not, up to you. So then, with that out of the way, first things first, oscillators. So we go to the mixer here, and what we want is both main oscillators, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, both at full, no sub, no noise. And with both of these oscillators, we want them at saw, which is the default anyway, but I am just putting them on saw just for the theatrics of it. And so that sounds like this. So immediately the first thing we want to do is go to the amp envelope, because that is one of the most important things in shaping what a sound feels and sounds like. So the first thing we want is a bit of attack. This is on just instant attack. And so we want to slow that attack down a bit, bring it up to here. Hopefully you can see where that's up to. If you can't see it clearly enough, you can just hear it. Just a bit of attack. Next, sustain and decay. So sustain is at full, which means that decay is doing nothing. If you don't understand how that works, just look up ADSR and the relationship between decay and sustain. Another topic for another day again. Next, we've got release. We want a bit of release. Not a crazy amount, but just that amount, which is about 50%. So That's what it sounds like now. So obviously this sound is way too bright. So what I could do is I could just bring the filter down. That sounds awesome, but it's not the sound we're going for. So we want some filter envelope in here to give it even more movement and dimension. So the first thing is bring the cutoff way down to almost inaudible to give plenty of headroom for the filter envelope to do its work. And then we're going to bring the the filter envelope up to about here. Hopefully you can see that. It's just below, if 0 is at 12 o'clock, it's just below 3 o'clock, which is just below sort of the third line on there. This is probably the most important parameter to get exactly right. Out of all the parameters, this and this, the interplay between them, is probably going to impact, like, it's the most sensitive, it's the most expressive thing, and so getting it just right is going to get it just the sound you want. Okay, so that's what that sounds like now. So the first thing is we want to slow down the attack, and we want to make the attack a bit slower. We want the filter envelope attack to be a bit slower than the amp envelope attack, so that by the time the amp envelope is at full, the filter is still catching up. It's just behind it a bit. It gives it a bit nice. It's nice. Next, sustain is at full, which again means decay is irrelevant. So sustain and decay, they're doing nothing. And then release. I've got release at full. Basically, we want the release to be higher than the amp release. We want the filter envelope release to be higher than the amp envelope release, because I'll show you what happens if, this is what it sounds like now. If I bring it down to 0, it's effectively no release, because essentially when I let go, the filter is closing up and taking all the sound out, and so there's nothing there to amplify. So when I open that up all the way, essentially the filter doesn't close after I let go of the key, and that allows the amp envelope to just do its thing. So we're getting a lot closer, but next important thing we want to do to bring it a bit more dimension is some resonance. So I've got it here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a bit below the 5th line on the circle there. And that brings it so much more character already. And then the next thing is keyboard tracking on half. What that does is it gives focus and emphasis on the melody notes, and allows these bottom notes to not stick through as much, because this is what it sounds like without key tracking. That's what it sounds like with key tracking. Much better. So then the next thing, and this is really important, is the LFO. This is kind of the secret sauce to this patch. Essentially, we're using the LFO to create vibrato. So we need the frequency 1 and frequency 2. So we're modulating the frequency on both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 simultaneously and equally, which just essentially creates vibrato. And it's a subtle vibrato, but it makes a huge difference to the patch. So we're not using this at all. So we're just using frequency and initial amount. And so to get the frequency, it's going to be subtle in the end, but I'll bring this up here. I'll bring the initial amount high so that we can hear the frequency more clearly. And we've got it there. You can listen to that and you can decide what tempo that is. Here, I'll make it easier for you. It's on a sawtooth. You can tap that into your metronome, and decide what tempo it is, but we're going to be on triangle. And so then we'll bring the initial amount down. It's very sensitive. I mean, it is to taste, but it's, if you've got the first line here, which is essentially 0, and then the next line above it, it's still below that first line above 0. So you really don't want much. But you can hear it. You want it audible, but not in your face. And so that is essentially the sound. But a couple more things that I added to it. The first is Panspread. If you're listening to this on headphones, you are loving this. So it's a decent amount of Panspread, and that actually, what it actually does is it does kind of, it actually brings more attention to the high notes. It makes it kind of easier to hear because they kind of stick out in the stereo spread a bit. So I kind of like that. And I just love things in stereo. It always sounds better. The next thing, and this is very optional, but I have it in here, and that is aftertouch. And what I have is aftertouch on the low pass filter, and I have it negative just slightly. And what it does is it allows me that when I press down on aftertouch, it reduces the filter cutoff slightly, and that just enables me to have a bit of control. I don't have velocity on here doing anything. I just personally just find it difficult to control any patch with my fingers through velocity. It's just really hard to manage. But this gives you a bit of control for when you really need to lower the cutoff. And I've used it in the beginning here. Yeah. So that is the sound as far as synthesis goes. The next thing is obviously effects, because on my initial video, I've got a very healthy amount of Valhalla Shimmer, which is a beautiful reverb that just takes any synth and just takes it up 10 levels. But you can, if you don't have that, you can use these effects, and now I will show you what those effects are. And these are the effects I had on in the beginning of the video. So first, a bit of delay. What we've got is Bucket Brigade delay, mix at 23, clock on sync, and the tempo is 75 for whatever reason. And then we're on dotted eighths, and the feedback is 64. This even just this delay adds so much. Anyway, and so then I've got a bit of hall reverb. Where's the hall? There it is. And hall reverb, we've got mix on 67. This parameter, whatever that is, decay, I think. I haven't read the manual in a while, on 243. And then whatever this is, I think that's pre-delay on 67. I've really essentially just chucked on whole delay and upped the parameters to make it sound massive, as big as I can. And so this sounds like this. Without effects. With effects. And now I'll do it with Valhalla Shimmer. So there you go, that's the sound. You can use it for a lot more than Blade Runner.